willing to pursue criminal charges. If we can get enough evidence, we'll do it. We'll be the police charging the defendant, not the victim. So some of our best files have been with the victims who won't cooperate fully, or been too intimidated by the threats of the offender to do it. We'll just charge them. We had an incident with a fella, 2 breaches of intervention order by a text message. When I saw the victim, it was only two text messages. I just want the behaviour to stop. We didn't actually I knew the offender. I charged him previously when I was at Nunawading. So we did telephone checks from his phone to her phone over a 15-day period. 350 breaches, and also breaches to the new boyfriend as well. So he did 9 months inside. So sometimes we not so much don't believe the victim. We want to corroborate their evidence, but we'll dig. If we think there's some more, we'll dig a little bit further. In 2011, I just went on to the old 17s, and this is how there's been a real spike in the last 4 to 5 years. Statewide in 2011, there was 43,800 family violence reports. Last year, statewide, 74,385. So we're talking about explosion in reporting. Yes, there has been. And also, there's been a significant increase in detected criminal offences as a result of family violence related matters. Because the majority of family violence offenders are crooks, are criminals. Their behaviour is behaviour. I'll give you an example. This is from the Crime Agency website. Breach of intervention order. So there's a court order in place. The perpetrator has decided to breach the order for whatever reason. In 2011, there were 17,900 reports of breach of intervention order. 4 years later, 2015, nearly 52,500 breaches of intervention order. So you've got increased reporting, but you've also got increased detection and prosecution of criminal offences. As much as there's media not so much beat-ups, but media exposure about, is it safe to walk the streets? Between 40 and 45% of all assaults as a result of domestic situations. You would think at the family home you'd be safe. We think, a family home's a castle, it's your own property, but as a result of domestic disputes, identified assaults between 40 and 45%. The same, for murders or whatever, it's probably around that 40% where there's some sort of relationship. A lot of trends at the moment is we're looking at elder abuse with adult children returning to the family home, but we've had a few incidents where it's been adult grandchildren returning back to their grandparents or grandmother in one particular case. Drugs, alcohol, financial difficulty, and the poor 93-year-old beaten black and blue due to their drugged grandson. Absolute disgrace. So he's currently serving a sentence. So there's a lot of different factors. It's not just husband and wife or de factos, it covers the whole gamut of a family relationship. And that's a slightly increasing trend with elder abuse. And it's also adult children taking advantage of their older parents, signing them up to be loan guarantors for loans and whatever. That's economic abuse. Just taking advantage maybe to their frailty or their mental capacity as well. It's a sleeper issue, but it's going to, as the population, we're all getting older, and it's going to increase. So that's something we need to address. They're addressing it in Aberystwyth where they've got a little bit of an issue compared to us, but it's certainly a driver of family violence. What I want to talk about, and I'll just finish up on this because I'm trying to just keep it fairly general, fairly quick and fairly short, otherwise I could baffle you with a lot of different facts and figures. Our unit was set up in October 2013. Our unit was to really sort out the worst type of behaviour that you could get with family violence. And I'll give you a couple of examples. We had an incident a couple of weeks before last where the victim, female victim, and 18-year-old son was threatened with 18-month-old son, was threatened with a firearm. threatened to kill himself while he's driving, pointing the firearm at the victim. Due to different policing methods and actions, we're able to arrest him with the assistance of the Special Operations Group, the SOG. So that was probably unheard of for family violence related incidents 5 years ago, 12 months ago. So we had the SOG with surveillance units, and we were able to track the offender from Corio through to Knox City, where the SOG arrested him on our behalf. So that's, again, high risk. We thought the victim was in immediate danger, and the Assistant Commissioner signed off on the deployment of the SOG. So that's the type of stuff our units are getting involved in. Since we've started, we've done 191 remands. What a remand is, we've said, you're the offender, your behaviour, your criminal behaviour is that bad, we're taking you straight to the court for a bail justice and presenting you before the court and saying you need to be incarcerated immediately until your case is heard. So we've had a very good strike rate. We've only missed out probably about 20-25 times. So, with the one last night, it's 191 remands. So over 30 months. So we're very much going to court on a regular basis. We're becoming very familiar at court. We've done about 225 briefs of evidence, and in that time we've only got 2 contests. Contested hearings where the criminal or the crook, the accused, says, I'm not guilty, I want to contest the matter. So out of 225 briefs of evidence to have 2 contests, it's an excellent strike rate. Most of them roll up, put up their hand, and we're getting very good support, particularly at Ringwood Magistrates Court. Would you believe if you log on, I should have brought a copy of Police Life. I'm actually in the current issue of Police Life for a specific case, and I'll explain that case in a second to you. But since we've commenced in October 2013, we've had 6 deportations where the perpetrators have been here on a visa, essentially a tourist type visa, visiting family, and due to their behaviour here, they've had their visas cancelled and sent back home. February 2015, last year, there was a couple of Chinese nationals, grandparents came out from China. There'd been a dispute at the family home, and incident blew up. Next morning, they were at their grandchildren's school in a taxi, trying to coerce the children to come in the taxi with them. I've got no doubt they were trying to take the children with them back to China. So Doncaster Police Station was involved, and they did a very good job. I only really assisted on the periphery, giving advice, and that's part of my role, is to offer advice and strategies for stations, make sure on the right track and complying with the law and legislation. So we've got issued complaint warrants for intervention order, but couldn't execute them because the offenders have gone back to China. So there's a facility where we can put an alert on their passports, so if they come back out to Australia, intend to travel, it'll flag. So on Monday night in August last year, I got a phone call from my cider Alistair Farrell at Doncaster saying, reminded me of the car, yes, and they were coming that morning, so we wanted a few extra members, and I immediately put my hand up because I'd never been to the airport on the other side of the campus, so to speak. So cut a long story short, they were intercepted at passport control, taken to a room. We served them with the paperwork for an intervention order, and then we spoke immigration, their equivalent of an inspector, and they've got new with the terrorism alerts and whatever at the moment. Not that these were terrorists by any stretch, but they've got community safety legislation. We've detailed what had happened previously. Their sole reason we believe they were coming to Australia was for a family visit. They've got no other family in Australia. Their visa was cancelled that day and back on the 8 o'clock flight home. So did we protect the victim and the children? Yes, we did. Did we stop any potential offences happening? Yes, we did. And another one, just to show you the lengths we'll go to, is an Indian couple of arranged marriage live in East Burwood. And I might have said this a couple of years ago because it was about that time when I was last here. And so it was an arranged marriage, and the husband and wife get on very well. They've got a young baby. But there'd been a dispute in India over the dowry. So the victim, who's the female here, her mother-in-law and sister-in-law came out from India. because there'd been a dispute and shame and family dishonour, came, took her out the house at East Burwood, out the unit, and assaulted her black and blue in front of a 2-year-old. So they got arrested, got remanded, and they were looking at serious criminal charges which were going to go to the county court. So, speaking to the Office of Public Prosecutions, it was going to take 2 years by the time they went through the committal hearing. They weren't going to be in remand for 2 years. The state would have had to provide them accommodation, probably some sort of financial assistance. So, unfortunately, the charges got dumbed down back into the Magistrates Court, convicted and fined, and then visa cancelled back home to India. 5 years, not allowed to come back. Was it the best outcome? I think it probably was the best outcome. Did we keep the victims safe? Yes. They're not allowed back in the country. We could have kept them here. There's always the potential they'd go back to the house. Would they have been incarcerated here in jail sentence? Possibly, but who's to know 2 years down the line? So it cut to the chase fairly quickly, and we got a good result in that case. So
was that daughter-in-law with the husband?
Yes.
With the Chinese, they stayed together.
Yeah, the husband and wife. Yeah, that was all done. Yeah,
Oh,
it was a dispute. It was an internal dispute between the family and the grandparents. Didn't like the outcome of the dispute, and when tried to take their grandchildren home. So that was the result of that. So essentially, increased early intervention strategies with support agencies. That's what we're looking at trying to achieve, trying to get victims to engage with referral agencies, because we cannot keep arresting our way out of the problem. It's a matter of that early intervention, putting programs in place so people may recognise, hey, I'm in a relationship, I'm not being respected, I need to get out of this relationship. EDVOS, which is the Eastern Domestic Violence Outreach Service, on a Wednesday afternoon, we do a visitation with EDVOS to 4 or 5 what we think are high-risk victims, and we just go and cold call. Now, you had a dispute during the week, is everything okay? Can we assist with any other safety measures or assist you with intervention orders? And we'll let a domestic violence worker work with that client. And there's been we've seen 300 victims, there's been an 80% engagement rate. The normal referral methods, either a telephone call or a pamphlet, the engagement rate's about 30 to 35%. So it's been very good and very appropriate. Some of the safety measures...
Do you go in uniform for these
cases?
Yes,
yeah, we're generally uniform. Yeah. I've just lost my train of thought.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. Some of the safety measures we can put in with some of the external agencies, we can change the locks, pretty straightforward. We can put in surveillance cameras. We can put in external lighting, and an organisation known as Safe Futures has what's called a safety card. So it's essentially this size type card. It's worn around the neck or into a lapel. It's got a GPS tracking device, audio recording and visual recording as well. So if there's an incident, and also tracking back to a monitoring station. So if there's an incident, we've got evidence. So that's it costs about $1,500, but that goes to the highest of high risk. It's everything, unfortunately, is triage, and it's done on a risk type basis. But some of our best files have been where we haven't had the victim support. We had one in Blackburn a couple of years ago. The victim got assaulted by her ex-partner, broken eye socket, broken nose, wouldn't give us a statement. Police came, so we've got the members' observations, wouldn't let us take photographs, wouldn't sign a medical release. We had no evidence other than the members' observations. A 17-year-old daughter who made the call to 000, which was recorded. That's our other bit of evidence, so you could hear what happened. Wasn't allowed to give a statement, Mum wouldn't let her give a statement. He copped 9 months inside. Should have copped more if we had a little bit more cooperation, but I can understand she was in fear, intimidated. He had a cry for accessory to murder. So, was he capable of maybe committing a murder? Yes, he was. So, but what it goes again to demonstrate, even if as long as we've got sufficient admissible evidence, the police will charge. We will put people before. Recently, our unit, we had an offender who breached his intervention order. He'd been incarcerated since New Year's Eve. But what we did on him, because we locked him up before he got released and offended again, so we went and arrested him again, locked him up. we actually backtracked all his family violence history. We went back to 1993, located a victim, took a new statement, located a couple of independent witnesses plus medical records for an assault in 1993. He's pled up to that. So 23 years ago, he's pleading guilty. We thought the other charges we had for him, we thought, yeah, not a problem, but we thought we were going to have a contest with that one. He's pled up to it. If evidence was overwhelming. What's that say? Was it investigated properly in 1993? Maybe, maybe not, I don't know. Was charges proceeded with then? No, they weren't. At least we've got some satisfaction for that different victim from 20 odd years ago, so I think she got a bit of a surprise when we rang her up. So it was full credit to the member who investigated it from our unit. What have we got here? Yeah, we've used search warrants. We arrest and interview offenders in regional Victoria. As I say, we're up in Bendigo today. We've been to Ballarat. We've been to Sale. So wherever our offenders are, we'll go looking for them. And that's essentially where we are with family violence. I haven't got a crystal ball, but the Royal Commission has certainly highlighted the issue. There's 227 recommendations. The government's just released $572 million to implement some of those recommendations. When's it all going to happen? Probably 1 to 5 years it will come through. The one positive thing that's happening is the end of June, they've got what's known as the risk assessment management panels, which are being developed by DHS, and that's where the main players come once a month and all come with what we think are high risk victims. And then we have a bit of a triage session, so the highest of high risks will get that extra support. That's not to mean the other people who have been nominated don't get support. There's already ongoing supports where we think we need to really hone in for the victim's safety.
How many of these would be people who've come out on remand?
As in offenders?
Yes.
Well, the risk assessment management panels are dealing with victims,
Yeah.
but with the offenders coming out, our recidivism rates actually dropped in this region.
Mm.
So a lot of, when we started, we were probably looking at 1 in every 3rd report was probably what we call a recidivist offender, where 3 times or more in 12 months. That rate's dropped.
Good.
Has it dropped to naught? No, it hasn't. We've still got the same, but some people just don't learn.
Do many of the offenders think it's not their fault, it's all?
Yeah, it's your fault.
And
I'm the offender, it's your fault. You made me do this.
Do many of them change that attitude, or is it a
Some do,
difficult thing?
some do, some move on to different partners. So it's, and that's where, yeah, that's where our knowledge, being at our unit for our particular area, and the big thing that's come out of the Royal Commission is to probably finish up on this and then open to any questions. It's probably highlighted the need for information sharing between all different organisations, whether they're external agencies, government agencies, DHS, ourselves, EDVOS, mental health services, all hospitals. The information sharing, I think, is going to be a lot easier and a lot more transparent. We're looking at doing what's known as safety hubs, where the victim, instead of regurgitating, and I don't mean that negatively, but saying the same story again, essentially getting re-traumatised to a large degree, to this agency, that agency, that agency, they can get all in a one-stop shop. And one thing, Ringwood Magistrates Court, they're on a pilot program with a few other courts, and it'll become statewide. They've got an accelerated justice program. So if there's a criminal offence as a result of a family violence incident, it'll be dealt with from day one, when it first gets listed for court, within a 3-month period, to try and avoid the offender adjourning a matter. The victim, I'll go to court today, should get sorted, no, it's been adjourned. Their big emotional letdown, build themselves up for court again, adjourned. So essentially, remand is the next sitting of the court, and that's where the 3-month flag fall starts. If it's a bail, where they've released him on the offender on conditions that he won't re-offend, it's listed within 7 days. Or if it's a summons, which we still do summonses for family violence matters, it's got to be listed within 28 days. So essentially, if there's a criminal charge, the maximum time would be 4 months from start to finish, to try and accelerate so the victim can move on and get over what's happened, and hopefully the offender's held to account a lot more quickly.
Now let's go. Sorry. I'm a little concerned because Graham said unless I asked the question, I wouldn't get afternoon tea.
That's all right,
And-
Vince. I've known you long enough. I'm lining up one of those egg sandwiches as a traveller, actually.
And mine were fairly broad, and you were probably covered a fair bit of it already, but
I haven't drawn breath yet. I tend
there
to
is a family violence unit in every police district in Victoria, I would assume now.
Yes, there is. In so much as different components, we cover 4 police service areas because the volume, we're busy enough as it is, don't get me wrong. If you look at the city of Casey, there's a family violence unit for that one PSA, so there's a little bit, the makeup, yes, there is one, every area is covered, but the makeup is different in each area. We look after 4 police service areas, but our work's the equivalent of 1 police service area down at Casey. So Casey has their own unit, but yeah, there's I think 32 units around the state, all varying in size.
Well, I had actually, it was a 3-pronged question because,
You setting me up here.
well, I might not have to cook dinner yet, so. But is there a district, well, the next one, is there a district far worse than others, and if so, or apart from that, the family violence that is involved, is it more, I think you've covered it, that the husband or partner, ex-partner,
85% of offenders are male.
and racist sort of, or different ethnicities or something?
Yes, yeah, it covers a multitude, Vince. There's a lot of cultural issues. I use the Indian one, for example, where it's in some of the cultures it's acceptable for the husband to take out on their wife. Down in Monash, for example, we had a big issue there for a little while with Greeks, old Greeks. My house, I do what I like, in breach of an order. But there is cultural issues, and they're things we not so much tiptoe around, it's things we need to address as we become more educated as police members, and the community leaders in a lot of these cultural groups are very good. They want to try and assimilate in, don't get me wrong, but it's the recalcitrant 5%. It's the same in the Anglo-Saxon, Australian type thing. 95% of people are good. You're dealing with that rogue 5%, and it's the same across most cultures. It's that rogue 5%, but no, that is an issue, definitely an issue.
I think what he might have been asking was, is the north or the west or the south or the east worse? Is that right?
Well, that was a part of it, but I thought socio-economic
Yeah.
side of things.
There is a bit of a pecking order, but you're only one incident off a bad incident. It doesn't matter where it could be. As I say, out here we had that one with the SAG last week with the firearm. Is it out the norm? Yes, it is, but it happened in our patch. We deal with what we've got. Where there seems to be a threat, maybe getting to where you're going to, that a lot of the new housing developments, so you're looking at southeast corridor, and you may be looking at western type corridor as well. Distance, unemployment, drugs, alcohol, mental health, learned behaviour, because let's face it, it's been underreported for generations and generations, and it's learned behaviour. We all learn when our first jobs. We generally get paired with someone that's been doing the job for a little while. We learn how to do the job, whether it's right or wrong, but that learned type behaviour. So there's a lot of different factors in there, but we've got an issue here. There's still an issue in the east. And I'd rather just concentrate on our own little patch and keep our bosses happy. But in saying that, out of the 21 police divisions, we get audited each year with certain criteria we've got to meet. And we got ticks on every criteria, so we're trending in the right direction. Does it mean we can do better? Yes, it does. You never rest on your laurels.
How does Victoria compare with other states?
Good question. I don't know.
Well, I mean, do they have the same sort of structure that Victoria
Yeah,
does?
essentially.
Victoria Police,
Yeah.
And there's no statute of limitation on that sort of crime?
Yes, there is.
Oh,
Good question.
ooh,
Good question.
is there?
It is a good question. Breach of intervention order is a summary offence, has 12-month statute of limitations. But, can't remember if it was the Labor or Liberals, I think it might have been the Liberals, doesn't matter. State government brought in some legislation where if the offending is that bad, and I used that one with the cat, there's what's called an indictable breach of intervention order. indictable offences, we've got no statute of limitations. Because was it intending to cause harm or fear to the victim? Yes, it was, by that act. So there's no statute of limitations there. Or if there's 3 summary breaches within inside a 12-month period, 28-day period, the 12 months doesn't apply. It becomes an indictable breach of intervention order as a persistent breach of intervention order. So it brings it up into that higher penalty. And to answer your question, that will keep on ongoing.
Yeah.
But the general rule of thumb, breach of intervention order is a summary breach. But in saying that, it's not just a breach of intervention order. If there's an assault that takes place or reckless type conduct that's taken place, they'll get charged with the appropriate criminal offences. So they get charged with breach of intervention order, criminal damage if they've smashed property, which is an indictable offence, no statute of limitation. If there's an assault that's taken place, it could be an unlawful assault or it could be an indictable assault. So it's not just the breach, there's other charges as well that go with it. It's like a chef at a hamburger shop, you keep adding on layers. And then you put sesame seeds and sea bun on.
Alistair, can I ask you, I would consider myself an easily intimidated person. How do people who are intimidated like that, how do they survive? How do they get over the trauma that they've suffered?
A great deal of difficulty.
Huge difficulty.
Yeah, well, that's where the support agencies are invaluable, because it's not a Victoria Police matter. Family violence is a community matter, and it's a matter of getting support services in place. Not every victim will take up a support service, at least offer it to them. Some people, for whatever reason, are probably too proud, or some are more than happy to accept it. So it's a matter of if we at least give them the opportunity to engage and move on. And it takes time. You know, these victims, some of them are really very much traumatised.
Yes.
So, as I say, it's not just an eastern suburbs, it's an Australia-wide issue. And I just hark back to a couple of years ago, there was some American footballer or basketball I'd never heard of, but he assaulted his girlfriend in a lift, and it made the news here. That wouldn't have happened a decade ago. So the power of internet, power of social media is socially unacceptable. The AFL's tried to address it. They have a respect round, the White Ribbon campaign, that's certainly at the forefront come October, November. So there's definitely things afoot, and the Royal Commission into Family Violence, which released its findings in March. There's certainly a lot of recommendations there, and you know, the current government's thrown some money, you know, a significant amount of money to, you know, implement some of those recommendations. A lot of them are going to be long term, but it's a step in the right direction.
Well, there was one on the news just a couple of weeks ago, an ex-AFL footballer had been convicted, I think.
Yes, Stevens, yeah.
Next to him.
Yeah, that was at Ringwood Court. He's appealed to the County Court. Yeah, but be interesting to see what happens, because he's looking at a jail sentence. So he's certainly, has he been splashed across the media? Yes, he has. Has he been held to account? Yes, he has. Has he been publicly shamed? So he should be. You know, someone that should know better has had a lot of opportunity in life. I know the AFL footballers get rid, and he was a fairly high-profile player. They get fairly financially rewarded. But you'd be surprised who's who in the zoo as far as family violence perpetrators are concerned. Yes.
Who normally contacts the police? Is it the woman herself, the neighbours, the kids, or what? What normally?
A combination of everything: neighbours, passers-by, the victim themselves, sister, other family relatives. We've got one at the moment where the family relatives are a little bit annoyed at us that we haven't done anything, but we actually haven't been able to contact the victim. She won't answer the door. The neighbours won't. We know something's happening, but we still need that victim contact to corroborate what the sister's saying. Otherwise, it's just hearsay. But we still need that victim contact. I don't really want a statement from the victim, as long as even if she could sign a medical release, because the sister's disclosed she's been taken to hospital as a result of an assault, we've got a starting point, but we still need to make contact with the victim. But we've been around 8-9 times. Whether she's home or not, I don't know. Certainly not answering the door. And we've gone in uniform, we've gone in plain clothes. We've done a door knock around the neighbourhood.
Is she alive?
Yeah, she's alive. The sisters had a good question. Sisters had contact with her, but the victim just won't, scared, intimidated, coerced. So that's we'll get there with it.
And what about the police themselves? I mean, you're putting yourself into danger when these people have lost it.
The members on duty,
Yeah.
We do a risk, we get a job as a domestic at 1 Street, Wattle Park, and the members, they won't go straight there. What I'd expect them to do as a supervisor is get back onto D24, the police radio. Has there been any incidents previously? Who are the combatants? Is there an intervention order? The combatant's Billy Smith. What prize has Billy Smith's got? So if he's got, he's been done for firearms or this or that, automatically I'd be then saying, with my 251, that's the mobile sergeant. He should be on top of it anyway, generally they are. So we'll call these the building blocks. Okay, potential for firearms at that address, I wouldn't be going straight there. I'd be rendezvousing at a certain point, maybe getting another police unit there with the sergeant, and then we have a planned response, to the front, to the back, make sure we're vested up and whatever, because the house is potentially the most dangerous place there is. Kitchen, knives and forks, very sharp implements, garage, same thing. So it's a planned response. Sometimes you do go running in because you can hear what's happening. Sometimes you can do that planned response and get the right outcome. And it might even mean ringing the house up or trying to keep the victim on the phone as well, because if the victim's talking, they're not in danger immediately, if you know what I mean, because there's a communication happening. But we try and go there and try and go safely.
Can I just ask one last question? This happened to me. If I was to report my neighbour because he was abusing his kids, would my name be divulged?
No, but maybe the appropriate for if it's with children, probably the appropriate phone call would be to DHHS, because they have contact with our sexual offences unit, and a lot of the stuff the socket does, and it becomes family related. Incidents like that, our unit doesn't get involved in. We've had some victims where there's been rape allegations, multiple rape allegations, and we've moved it onto the socket because it's out of our area of expertise, because we've had over 50 members rotate through our unit, so taking that knowledge they gain at our unit back to stations, but they're uniform members. They haven't got that extra training that's needed. We could have investigated the rape allegations, but we haven't got that expertise and how to deal with that type of victim. So as soon as we've got that, we've built up rapport, but we gently took them over to another unit that's more appropriate.
Can I ask, we always hear about women fleeing and looking for somewhere to stay. Are we ever going to get to the stage where you just get the men out of the house?
That's generally what happens.
It does now?
Yeah, if we can keep the woman, providing it's safe, in the house, that's what we do. I'll just use this example. So it's a de facto relationship, for example. They're not married, but they live together. They've been in a relationship for ever how long. And he might be the person that's renting the house, and the lease is in his name. Doesn't matter. Given the order, out. Generally speaking, it goes unsafely. Because it's too much dislocation, particularly if you've got a couple of kids and they go to school. Friends, that social network, we can keep the woman in the house safely, and that's what I was leading on to. Well, previously, we changed the door locks, get security cameras in or increase lighting. Might even mean getting a gardener and cutting that hedge so there's a bit of a clear line of vision down the driveway so you can peer out the front window. If you hear something, at least you might be able to see something as well. So no, but there is occasions where the woman does flee. Part of the 500